Well, golly, we got a lot of code to write to get the rotation in there. One thing I'm going to go ahead and start us off with is I alluded to this in the last video. We should have our sliders basically start at their previous value. So when you go over here and you set up your scale mode, we're going to change our minimum and maximum value to 0.5 and 1.0. This is what we had for the default anyway. But we're going to change these minimum maximums for the rotation. And then what we should do is check to see if there is a saved default value for the scale. So if that does not equal 0, then what we're going to do is we're going to set the slider. So we go set value, and then you can just put in here exactly what we tested for to true, and then that way when you, I need to build it for you guys. That way you'll return to that slider position, and that way it's not either just at like 0 or 1 or one end of the spectrum. So it's a much smoother experience for the user. And once we take a look at this, we'll jump right into the rotation stuff, which involves quite a bit of work. All right, so again, go over here to your scale, and so I'm going to put that up over that way, and then I'll go here. I'll mess around with another image. So come back to this one, go to the scale, and sure enough, it is right back where we left it at. Okay. All right, now for the rotational stuff, let's come right into over here. So we're going to say the slider dot minimum value equals 0. The slider dot maximum value is going to equal 360. I think everybody is familiar with, a circle being 360 degrees. Unfortunately, when we do the CG affine transform for this, it's going to go. It wants radians instead of degrees, but that's okay. We'll be able to deal with that, and we'll take a kind of quick look at how to convert that right now. Actually, so what we'll do is we'll test to see if defaults dot float 4 key. And again, we're just going to take this same big old chunk right here, except we're going to make that be a rotate. So if that does not equal 0, then obviously we know that we've got a previous value in there for that. I feel like I have one too many parentheses there. Yeah, it looks like I did. So in this case, we've previously saved a rotation amount, and what we'll do is we'll say let rotate amount, and when I save these amounts, I'm going to be saving them in the degree value. Okay, and no, I'm wrong about that. I'm saving them in their radians. So what I want to do is I want to put this back over into degrees so we can set our slider, right? So we're going to say let rotate amount, and there's actually a new, I've never done this before, but there's a new kind of measurement thing in here for converting things. So we'll put in here the value, and this is going to be, it wants a double value in here. It's just yet another fun way of converting numbers around unnecessarily. So we're going to just take this and put it in to right there, and then step right back out of that. All right, so we're just closing off our double, and then you put in here unit, and then unit angle dot radians. So again, this is the value in radians, and then close this whole thing off right here. Okay, and then you're just going to put dot converted to, and then throw in here dot degrees, and then finally there's this dot value at the end of it. Okay, and then what we'll do is just say that the slider dot set value, and we're gonna again do a little conversion here. It wants floats, so that's gonna be the rotate amount, and we'll set that over here to true, and we'll see basically the opposite of this in just a moment when we go the other way around, when we go to from degrees to radians, or radians to degrees, whatever. Okay, so that'll take care of that, and then what we want to do is tinker around with our slider value changed, and this is not as simple as just coming in here and So for example, saying something like self dot emoji image dot transform equals CG affine transform rotated. Okay, yeah, that would have been really nice, because then we really could have just put in here, converted the degrees to radians and then thrown in, whatever the rotate amount. What happens is if you do that, we end up resetting the scale. So the scale goes back to being the default value. So you have to combine both of them. So that means that when we rotate or scale, we need to take into account any past changes for that. So what we're going to do is let's just start off by putting a variable in here. So we'll say the scale. This is going to be a CG float. We're going to make this equal to 0.5 because that's what we default to the scale being. And then we're going to say if defaults dot, let's just go ahead and copy this. It's just the same code that we had when we initially set up the image. So we check to see if it has a scale value. If that does not equal 0, then we replace the scale with whatever it previously was. And then what we're going to do is we're going to say that let rotate amount. And again, I'm going to just go ahead and copy in some of that same measurement code that I just showed you guys. So it's measurement. So the value this time around is going to be our sender.value. Okay, so whatever we're tinkering around with on the slider, which goes from 0 to 360. And then we convert that over to radians. And then from this point, what we're going to write is self.emojiimage.transform. And this is going to equal CG affine transform. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to put in here the rotation angle that's going to be, and we actually have to convert that to CG float. So that's going to be our rotate amount. And then step out to this other, after this second parentheses right here, and then put concatenating. And then we basically just do our other CG affine transform. So the scale one that we previously had in here, right? And if you want, let's see. Let's just write it out. CG affine transform, and then scale. Oh, it was filling that in for me. Scale X. Yeah, what's going on? Okay, and in this case, we just put the scale and then comma separate Y. The scale. Okay, and I think, let's see, is that going to do it? All right, one thing we want to do is set our defaults to be set. And we're going to put in here rotate amount for key, and as usual, it's going to be it's this, but we're going to change it to rotate. So put in there rotate. Okay, and what don't you like about it? I'm sure I just have some small typo in here. Let me go ahead and just replace it with the one I know works. All right, what difference did we just see there? Oh, was it that? I'm not seeing much difference other than that. Hey, okay, well. All right, well, here's the deal. When we test it now, we'll be able to set an initial scale, and then we'll just try rotating it and see if everything looks normal again. But of course, we need to put in, deal with the rotation in this block as well. So go over here. All right, this will be the guy that we pick on. So like I said, we're going to adjust the scale. Let's put the scale all the way down, and then we'll go over here and we'll rotate it. And so you can see on one end, you're basically upright again, because remember 0 and 360 are the same. But as you're going to increment through here, so it's about dead in the middle, he should be at a 180. And sure enough, this whole time, the scale has stayed the same, right? So that's a good sign that things are working. Let's bump them up. And you'll notice that as soon as I did that, then the rotation goes away. But we should be able to get it back, over here. All right, so the scale's staying the same. So in other words, all we need to do now is basically the reverse of this, where we take into account our rotation. And I'm going to just do a real quick replace of that code. So rotate amount. We pull out the rotation from the defaults, and then we just do that same thing again over here with the scale, and everything should be hunky-dory there. What we should do now is make it so that when we add our emoji image in, we also now added in with the default rotate and scale values. But just to kind of prove the point here, let's go ahead and scale this guy. Okay, and it did actually use those previous rotation values, you can already tell, you know. But again, go back here, scale it again, and the rotation stays the same, right? And sure enough, as soon as we rotate it, everything should be the same. So let's jump back over here to where we add our emoji image. And, you know, just for the sake of time and your sanity, let's just go ahead and paste all this back in here, and you guys can take a good look at it all together. I don't need that line. I was just commented out from what we previously had. So again, just setting up that default scale value. We replace it with the defaults if there is one, and then same thing with rotate amount, so that'll just be a default value of 0. But then again, check to see if the user defaults have a rotate amount. If so, we grab it out of there, and we just go ahead and put it into this whole deal, right? And we can animate that. So let's take a look, and what we'll do is we'll swap back and forth between a bunch of those different images and just really give it a good test. All right, so caption that guy. Okay, sure enough, he kind of spun down to his previous value. And obviously I've been testing these, so they do have some previous values. Let's make him go back to this value. No, that's not a good test, because here we go. So the tongue is kind of off that way, right? Oh, well, look at that. You can just, don't even really have to switch as long as you do something to it. Yep. Sure enough. Okay, going back. This guy, put him, let's rotate him. Cool, right? That looks pretty nice. And he had no rotation. Let's set his scale. Scale back down. Okay. I think we got it. All right, so what's ahead? Well, we obviously need to do the same exact thing for all those images. It's actually not going to be that much more code, because really what we can do is start replacing out in cases like the value changed. You know, instead of hard coding in here emoji image, we can swap between whether or not we're currently moving or adjusting the emoji image or the saying image. One thing we should do, we got a little bit of time here. Let's make it so that when you click down on this, we can actually go back to the intro screen. So go ahead and just cut on down to your did transition to statement, and let's take a look where we're at here. Let me pretty this up just a tad. Okay, so what we've got is if we're in emoji mode equals false. All right, so obviously we're in our else statement over here, because that's, you know, we're customizing emoji. And then if emoji picker.superview equals nil, then we set up this mode. All right, so let's put an else statement inside of here. And what we'll check is to see if we are in our emoji picker view, right? But what we want to do is check if presentation style equals .compact. Okay, so obviously this wouldn't run, you know, and then we're checking to see if we've gone back down into compact mode. And then in which case, let's put a little print statement. We'll say that we are leaving emoji mode, and we're going to want to call initial setup again, and then also a function to remove items from emoji mode. And what the heck, let's just go ahead and write that down here real quick. So we'll just say function remove items from emoji mode, and that's going to be things like our emoji picker dot well, just remove from super view, the slider dot remove from super view, the image container dot remove from super view. Okay, and then what we'll also want to do at that point is say in emoji mode. Well, you know what, that might get run inside of our initial setup anyway. Let's check that out. Let's see, initial setup. Okay, right. So that would end up going back to being false again. Yeah, let's see what happens. Really, what we need to do is just kind of test this with by going from expanded and then back out again. So we should test it a couple times. First, let's expand this. That caption button's a little low, isn't it? So caption this. All right, and then go back out. All right. Then let's go directly in. So, okay, that seems all right. Again. Okay, yeah, I think that's fine. You know what? Let me find caption this, and yeah, I'm going to subtract a little from where that's ending up on the y-axis. Let's say minus 30 at least. But yeah, okay, at least we now have a way to kind of step in and out of there. Yeah, that's much better, right? So caption this guy. And sure enough, there's our image right back where it should be, right? Scale value. Rotate. Yeah, I think this is looking like a success, right? Okay, let's come back with more in the next video.